Working Cows Podcast, episode 238.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Conry, host of the Working Cows Podcast, and this episode is brought to you by Magnetic Ag, the all things agriculture newsletter. And if you haven't already figured it out, if you didn't catch that, show number intro was from Brian Alexander. Brian is, of course, a rancher from the Red Hills of Kansas, also a podcaster, a regenerative agriculture, cow-focused podcast, things I've been asking for a long time is more of those, because I can't possibly produce enough content to keep your ears busy all the time, so I need the division of labor to step in and produce that content, and he's been doing a great job. And as a matter of fact, I think today his episode is with Steve Campbell, so pretty exciting stuff there. Always good to have more Brian Alexander in your life, always good to have more Steve Campbell in your life. So Steve has been a real great friend and has facilitated a couple of really exciting connections that you will get to benefit from in the coming weeks, Lord willing. But for now, we are going to talk to Brian today about Nature's Plus One. If you've been to the Ranching for Profit school, you have heard about Nature's Plus One. If you haven't, we're going to introduce you to the concept of Nature's Plus One and talk about some of the opportunities that exist when you start to think that way. Did want to make you aware of something on the front end of this episode. I've talked about it in the outro of a couple of episodes, but been very blessed by all the Patreon support over the years. You guys have been a huge blessing to my family. One of the things that I do is from time to time I send out a little bit more substantial gift in addition to the coffee mugs and stickers that Patreon produces for me. The Fertility Drives the Bus coffee mug and the Working Cows Podcast logo coffee mug, and then the stickers, a couple of stickers they send out. So basically once every 3 months you get a gift. If you are supporting at the $20 per month level, all of the levels on Patreon, you can also sign up to do one time per year, and you get a 10% discount. So if you go out and support the podcast between now and the beginning of June at the $20 per month level or the $216 per year level, I will be getting some custom engraved cribbage boards made. Now these are 3-track cribbage boards with the WCP WorkingCows.net logo right in the middle of them. Comes with a deck of cards and pins and everything, of course. So if that's interesting to you, head on over to WorkingCows.net/238. Check out the show notes page, and we'll get you one of those sent out sometime in early June, Lord willing. But for now, without further ado, we're going to jump in and have a conversation with Brian Alexander of Ranching Reboot and the Red Hills Rancher himself. So, Brian, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows Podcast. Welcome back. You're elite.
What is it? This is the 6th time we've sat down to do this.
Is it? Something like that.
It's just I had to go back through and keep and look.
Right. Yep.
I didn't count up anybody else. Is Dallas still beating me?
Probably. Yeah.
That's okay.
I think since you started your own podcast, I'm not sure I've had you back on. So, that's...
No, this is the first time we managed to get back together.
Yeah. So, but it's good. I'm glad people are taking me up on this. We need more cow-focused regenerative agriculture podcasts, because I can't possibly interview all the people I know I should interview, and then there's all the people I don't even know I should interview. So you guys are killing it. So
speaking of that, so I know this is going to be a few weeks before it comes out, but when your last Steve Campbell episode came out, it came out on a Monday, or maybe it was, maybe I didn't find it till Tuesday morning, but I had a schedule with Steve Campbell to interview that afternoon.
Yeah.
And due to a scheduling conflict, that got pushed into April. But I just thought it was kind of funny, so I went ahead and I listened to that and I wrote down everything you guys talked about to make sure that we weren't going to talk about that stuff on my podcast. So
cool. What are you going to talk about with Steve?
Well, everybody's heard him talk about his red solo cup cows and C90 and remineralizing cows. But what do we really know about Steve? How did Steve figure all this stuff out? So that's the story that's what I want to get out of Steve.
Real good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about Gerald Fry and some of those guys. So cool. Yeah, that'll be real good. Look forward to that.
You're a little farther ahead than I am, so this one might actually come out after my Steve.
All right. Yeah, well, if it has, it'll be in the show notes page for today, workingcows.net/238. So go find that and we'll make it happen. But today I asked Brian to warm up the school that shall be named later, Finger, because we're going to talk about something from the Ranching for Profit School.
There you go.
We are talking about the idea of nature plus one, which is, I think, something they get into maybe on the 4th or 5th day of school, where they
definitely toward the end.
Yeah, towards the end, where they talk about if you left a herd of cows on their own for, I don't know what the number is, 100 years, let's just say, a herd of cows on their own for 100 years, what would you have when you came back? And you would have 50% bulls, 50% cows, and, kind of this cow herd that looks a certain way. Now, what could you do to increase its profitability? What's the one management thing you could add? And I don't know if it's the same in every room. What has been your experience when that question gets asked?
The 2 times I've been through, the answer comes back is basically just change the bull to cow ratio and get rid of the steers.
Right.
And the theory always comes up that, the fertile ones survived after 100 years. The fertile ones are the ones that survived, and they're the ones that are breeding back. So we want to keep all the females, but the steers are, you don't need 50% bulls. So get rid of some of those bulls and get your bull to cow ratio back somewhere a little bit more reasonable. For some reason, I remember when I went through in 2006, industry standards were like 50-1. And now I think everybody's kind of fallen back to, 25 or, 20-1. And I like so many other things, I question, have we gone too far the wrong direction?
Right. Yeah. And so when I talked to Steve Campbell most recently, I kind of ran past him a graphic that I'd seen on the internet where they said 1 cow to the bull per month of age at turnout, and I don't remember if there was a maximum on that or not, but I mean, if you're turning out an 18-month-old bull, that's 18 cows to the bull. So I mean, the younger they get, the lower it gets. But then I don't know anybody who's taken that and saying, well, I'm turning out a 4-year-old bull, so I'm going to run 48 cows to the bull. I know some people who are challenging heifers that way.
If Kit Pharaoh can be believed, all of his bulls can service 50 cows.
Right. Yes. Well, and I don't remember if it was the Indralins. I think it was the Indralins that told me that they had a bull who had bred 60 to 70 cows every year for the last 3 years based on the DNA tests. So, I mean, I definitely think it's possible. I definitely think if we did some parentage testing, we would find out that there are some bulls that are way overperforming, some bulls that are way underperforming. And if you could figure out how to find those overperforming bulls and reduce your bull to cow ratio, there's another way to increase profitability. So, but the reason I asked you here today is so that when we are talking about this, what they call that is nature plus one, where we're going to change one thing. We're going to reduce the bull to cow ratio. And I don't remember how this conversation happened, but somewhere along the line, basically you said to me, yeah, that's what Corriente cows are. They are that nature plus one. Can you walk me through their history as you understand it, or why you said that?
Yeah, you bet. So, in the exercise, you're talking about, taking a very large ranch and just pulling the fences out, letting the cows go wild, go feral, basically, and let nature drive the bus for for 50 generations, and then you come back and you see what it's like, and you make one change for profitability. Well, the Corriente cattle, along with Longhorn share genetic parentage, the Piney Woods cattle that are scattered along the Gulf Coast, Florida and the swamps, they all share common ancestry with the Creole cattle that the Spanish had and brought over to this continent in the 1500s. Well, the Spanish weren't the best at keeping track of their livestock. I mean, that's why we've got pigs. That's why we've got horses. That's how the Indians got horses. And that's, why we've got cattle that went wild on this continent. And by that, I mean, so after they left in the 1500s, some of them escaped to go out and live in the wilds of Mexico and roam up into the desert southwest of what's now the United States. And for basically 400 years, a lot of these genetics got to run around without being fooled with by man. It's only been really within the last 100 years or so that we've really started doing any breeding, like selective breeding of our beef animals in this country. And, we can talk about this later about the pattern in the last 50 years of probably breeding for some of the wrong things. So, and what I look at, what I see in the Corrientes is they just haven't been messed with for the last 50 years. There's a breed association, but they promote the breed of sporting cattle, which I think is perfectly fine. I mean, it's that I don't want to talk bad about that part of the industry at all or make anybody think that I am. But they've kept the breed relatively unmessed around with. And it doesn't perform probably as well as a lot of others will on high energy feed. And I'm okay with that.
As far as breed association, you're referring specifically to the Corriente Breed Association?
Yeah, I think it's called the North American Corriente Association, NACA. I'm not a member. I'm not much of a joiner.
Yeah. So no, that's that. I just wanted to clarify that. And you said that even in that breed association, they have kept it pretty unmessed around with. Is that right?
Yeah. Like most breed associations, they promote, the positive aspects of their breed from their viewpoint. And they've really chosen to focus through their history on maintaining, that it's a sporting breed, that they're raising them for ropers and for bulldoggers, which is perfectly fine. Like I said, we need people that do that. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I saw something a little bit different. I saw a breed that just hadn't been messed with genetically and pushed hard with a lot of feed. So yeah, I bought cows from a sale barn, and we know what that's like. There's, whenever you buy them from the sale barn, you're setting yourself up for a wreck. And I knew that, but there's always trash in another man's, or treasure in another man's trash.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that, again, something I say every time I talk to Steve probably is that, my dad had a friend of his one time tell him that when people look at cattle, most of them don't know what they're looking at. And after sitting through Steve's school, I felt like that was the light switch that came on for me to know what I'm looking at when I'm looking at cattle. And now I can pick out those red Solo Cup cows, walking downhill on level ground, all that, and vice versa for the bulls. And so I think that a lot of times there are opportunities in the sale barn to find those low input type of cattle, and I think they exist in every breed. I think that probably in some breeds that have fallen more prey to the space race, there are fewer of those cattle that exist in their breed than in some of the others. But I think that definitely, especially like you said, within the Corriente breed, where it's been hasn't been messed around with as much, there's probably quite a few more of those kind of cattle available in that breed than in some of the others that have been chasing the leg and size and frame and all that.
And I'm not where I want with my frame size, and I'm not where I want to be with my inputs either. Like, I'm still feeding alfalfa. It brings up an important point. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. You can feed condition and fertility onto anything. And going back to your episode with Steve Campbell about how to select the right bull, it's great advice to be able to go to the pasture where that bull was raised and has been living and see the system where he's been raised. Like, I could give a crap what you write in the sale catalog. I want to see your ranch. I want to know how you raised that bull. I want to know what he was being eaten. I want to know how he got so fat and how he got such in good condition. If I roll in and there's, hay stacked a mile high and, 6 giant overhead bins and 4 feed wagons, I might be a little bit suspicious of you trying to sell me a grass developed bull, right? You roll into a place that, has polywire everywhere and a bunch of solar fence chargers. Yeah, you probably developed your bull on grass. So I think a lot of these things have to go beyond the catalog. And I think EPDs are a good tool for comparing bulls in that catalog, but I don't think you can take EPDs from one operation and necessarily compare them to another one because there's so many things that are highly dependent. And, as us guys that are in this low input game and regenerative game, as we keep pulling these inputs away, we're realizing what the cost of that extra 20% of fertility is. I guarantee you there's guys out there that are putting an extra $300 of fed feed cost in their cows every year in every single one of their cows to get less than 10% of them bred.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, and that's the thing that, another thing that comes up there in the school is, you're giving inputs to the cows that don't need it as well as the ones that do. And you really can't tell who doesn't need it until you take them away. And, probably what I'm more guilty of is you can't starve profit into a business. So you've got to be strategic with that supplementation and figure out when and where you need it for your zip code, for the kind of cattle you have, and dial it in, because there are times of the year when supplementation is going to make a difference. And there are it is sometimes worth a few extra pounds on the calf to get into the right kind of class of livestock. So was it just that straight up nature plus one type that drew you to the Corrientes? What originally drew you in to taking that plunge? Because these are the first owned cattle on Alexander Ranch in how long?
Since the 60s, as far as we can tell.
So we're 60 years, 50,
yeah,
50 to
60
years.
Give or take 60, maybe even a little, maybe closer to 70.
Right.
I'm not going to say that COVID had nothing to do with it. I mean, long-term security of your food, that definitely has something to do with it. I suppose there's a little bit of vanity factor in there too. Like calling myself a rancher without having cows is one thing. But also to some extent, I had to walk the walk. And Corrientes, let's face it, they're undervalued. I feel they're undervalued, and they have been. So we talked about fed feed cost and what some of that fertility cost. So the other one of the two biggest costs in ranching is cow depreciation. Okay. So great. You go buy that nice black on black 3-year-old cow with calf at side that's bred, and you pay over $2,000 for her. Fine. What's she going to be worth when she's 6 years old and rolls a donut?
Same as everything else.
Same as everything else. They're going to be worth the same as these per pound when they roll a donut. If one of these dies on my ranch, she's worth $200 because of the horns. Okay.
So Corrientes are never fully depreciated.
They're never fully depreciated. It just might take a lot of extra time and ingenuity to get some of your value back out of that animal. Right.
Sure. Yep. And so you went sale barn route and bought them, and some still there, some have gone on. I'm imagining, have others come in to replace the ones that have left, and how has that been going for you?
I've brought in a total of 3 groups now. So I brought a group in out of Lampasas, Texas, a group in out of Woodward, Oklahoma, another little like stock trailer load from Woodward that my buddy got a really great deal on. And then I bought about 30 of them from Josh and Gwen Hoy over on the Flying W. And the ones I bought from them are some of my best looking cows.
And that's an instinctive migratory grazing outfit, right? That you've interviewed. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, they do. They do the instinct of migration grazing. And, okay, so they sold me their cull cows. That's fine. They're still good cows. Some of the cows, there's diamonds in the rough in all three of the big packages that I bought. Okay. And there's been losses out of all three packages that I bought. I mean, let's be honest, February of 2021, the big giant cold that everybody experienced, I'll admit I lost a few head. And I think that anybody that doesn't admit they lost at least one is probably lying, or they didn't have any livestock. Because, I mean, that was just straight up brutal from all the way from where you're at there in South Dakota all the way down to the Gulf Coast.
Yep. So how are you managing them? What's what are you putting on them for a bull? Walk me through some of the actual practical side of what these girls are doing. Okay,
so I'm using a Angus bull that's basically been a zero input home raised Angus bull, and he'll be 3. He has 3. He'll be 4 this fall. He's super fleshy. He's only spent about 45 days of his life off this ranch. So he's in super good shape. He's adapted. He's just a big muscly boy. But I need a little bit more bull power to cover the rest of my cows. So we've got some Flekovich influenced Simmental bulls that a friend of mine has that we got from another friend of mine over in Georgia. Some of you might have heard of him, Reverend Wild Ranch. I think he's on TikTok, Facebook, and probably Instagram too. So we got 4 of those Flekovich influenced Simmental bulls, which I think they're really cool. And I've had them standing next to my bull, and they're like a full frame size smaller, but they're carrying they're carrying almost a full condition higher. Right? They're fleshier, they're shorter, and they're fatter for being like they're carrying more weight on a smaller frame, and they're heavier. So
nice.
We're going to cover. So we're going to put 2 of those out and my black bull to cover my cows this year and see how it goes. Last year we just had black bulls. I was commingled. The partner I was commingled with, we were also breeding his cows, and it was a little earlier than I would have liked. So we started calving. My first calf hit the ground on March 9th. That's too early. So we're definitely backing up at least a month. So I don't want my first calf on the ground until about the 1st of April. And then I think next year we're going to go ahead and try to move that to April 15th.
Gotcha. And what are they producing? What are the calves? What do they weigh, I guess, at weaning, and how are you guys approaching that? Are they staying on the cow, some of the heifers, or how are you guys approaching that?
So we weaned the calves early last year, probably a little earlier than I should have. But again, when you're commingled with somebody, some sacrifices may have to be made. And I got rid of the steers again. I don't need to talk about that, but kept all the heifers. The heifers went to wheat pasture for like 52 days. And then they got back and put right back with the cows. So my heifer development program is basically wean the heifer, make sure the cow dries up, and then put them right back. So everything is in a big, beautiful mesh right now. I've got everything from, mature running age cows, 5 and up. There's some probably 8 and 10-year-olds out there running around. I've got 2-year-olds. There's at least a couple of them that are carrying a calf. So they bred at 14 months. And then I've got my, all the yearling heifers running around too, and baby calves. So I've got 10 out of 2022 calf crop. And I'm excited about the 22 calf crop because it's the first one that I bred 100%. So all the rest of them before I've either bought bred or brought pairs, and I haven't known exactly what bull's in there. And that's fine. That's fine. That's why we only kept heifers out of that group. This year, I think I might be looking to save back a bull. I've got 10 on the ground that I know for sure. 7 of them are heifers. I only got 3 bulls.
Yeah. What do these cows weigh?
550, 600 pounds. I mean, they're small. My biggest cow is 750, 800.
And what percentage of their body weight are they weaning?
I don't know. Like I said, we weaned awful early, so it was probably around a 40%.
Gotcha.
35 to 40%. But this year, I think I'm going to try to leave them on about 9 months.
Mm-hmm. And everything, steers and heifers, or just the heifers?
Steers and heifers, I think we're going to leave them on about 9 months and kind of get into the winter and let them fall off the nutrition on the grass and just see when they dry up and naturally wean. And hopefully they'll all naturally wean. If they haven't by about 10 months, I'll just separate them with, 5 strands of barbed wire and see what happens.
Have you eaten any of these? Have you eaten any of the Corrientes or their calves or anything like that?
No, I haven't had a chance yet. So I bought these like a week or two after COVID started seizing up the world. Okay. And I think we all know what's happened since then is processing plants have just been like, give us a call in 2 years. So I'd like to harvest some this year. I'm trying to find a couple of slots. I do have a steer that was born April 1st, 2020. His name is Basil. And last September, he looked delicious. He just needs to have a little bit more size on him. So this September, we're going to try to get him a date at freezer camp, and probably as many of these other cows that are open and that I can fit in a grinder. So I'm probably going to try to get about 10 slots this fall, if I can find them.
Yeah, and it's not much different than another aged cow that would be mostly ground anyways. So have you had Corriente?
Cut the head off, let me have that back, throw the rest of her in the grinder.
Yeah. Have you had any, have you eaten any Corriente cattle?
Yes, I've eaten some like straight up 10-year-old, never been out of the pasture Corriente that was ground up into burger, and it was just delicious. I've had some that, let's see, that was a Corriente Charlet cross that went through the regular damned old system and finished on grain. Had that too, and it tasted just about like anything else you'll find in the grain-fed section at Walmart.
Right. And yeah, so this line of questioning is kind of all about that eating experience, and do you think that it's just a different shaped ribeye, or is there more to it than that? I've heard Ben Gottschall talk a lot about. How good Jersey cattle are as far as eating experience and all those things. Some of the cuts might be a little different shape or not quite as big as you're used to out of some of the beef cattle, but everything else is above average or above par for Angus cattle. So I was just kind of wondering about some of those things from a Corriente perspective.
I would really have no idea, sir. But like crossbreeding to some Jersey might be interesting, just to bring in, some of that butterfat potential. But I would be worried about, you're going to put too much udder on a range cow to try to make too much milk on a range cow. That'd be my concern, but that's also kind of like the initial black hat reaction. But as far as like the actual size and shape of cuts, that's way out of my wheelhouse, bud. So I would think that, of course, things are going to be smaller, a little bit different shaped. You're not going to have the marbling in a pasture finished animal like you will in a feedlot animal. I mean, that's it, period. You're just not going to get it because, in order to get that marbling, you got to feed a lot of grain. You got to feed a lot of extra energy that animal cannot metabolize and must store as intramuscular fat. Right. And I don't know how far you want to let me run down this rabbit hole, but I can go.
Well, yeah, no, but I think that there is, that's kind of what Steve Campbell's talking about, right? Is the ability to marble on grass comes from some of these maternal lines, the easy fleshing ability, the high butterfat content, all of that will influence their ability to marble on grass on some level. Now, it probably won't be as fast as a grain finished operation or whatever, but I do think that there is potential for well marbled beef. And as far as the Jersey cross putting too much udder on a range cow, that's a terminal cross, which we've forgotten We've apparently forgotten. Everybody is trying to sell you a maternal animal, but most of them are adapted to the feedlot, which makes them a terminal cross.
Right. It's kind of almost like we're using some of these terms and got them completely backwards. To me, the maternal genetics is what you see behind me. I mean, it's a cow being able to have a calf on her own in the pasture and have that calf up within 15 minutes to make a rotation. Like, that's a range cow. That's a good cow for me.
Yep.
A cow that I don't have to do anything but feed a little alfalfa to every couple of days. That's a good cow.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and she's got some tools on her head to defend against predators and knock some of the softer, more edible stuff off of the brush. And she's not afraid to try a little brush here and there to get by. I think those are all things that should be in consideration, especially in the West.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so she's not that big. Does she raise a nice little calf? Yeah. Is the calf ever going to be an 1,800-pound corn-fed feedlot monster? No, that's not what this is for. And that's not what these animals are for.
No, I'm with you. I'm right there with you. I totally agree. And I hesitate to even ask about size and weight, but I think that it's something that a lot of people do wonder about, and the crosses that we hear about, the Charolais cross or whatever that people are doing to put a little more meat on the bones, I guess, is kind of how I've understood it. But I'm just trying to wrap my head around the business side of running Corriente cattle and how that has you've learned.
It's also an exchange, right? It's a 3-for-5 exchange. If you've got 3 big old 1,200-pound cows that actually weigh 1,200 pounds, if you've got 3 of those, you can run 5 Corrientes, which 5 Corrientes can give you 5 calves versus 3 calves out of your 3 big cows. Okay. And at the end of the day, when you tally up the input cost of what it takes to run a Corriente herd, run your depreciation through, and even if you're taking 400 pounders to the sale barn and trying to hit that sweet spot 400 pounder market, you're going to have more to sell. It might take you a little longer to get there. You're going to have a lot more of them to sell. They're going to bring almost as much as a good one. And you're going to make up for it in volume. You're not going to get hit on the depreciation on the backside. You're not pouring money in them in fed feed costs to try to boost that fertility and boost that body condition. By trying to find an animal that can carry inherent body condition on less or on nothing other than what you provide in the pasture.
Are you selling them as black-hided calves? Are you selling them as Corriente cross calves? How's that work?
Well, I don't have a good marketing plan for this year's steer crop yet. And of course, the heifers get kept. Like I said, the heifer development program is everything in a big, beautiful mess. The heifers get treated exactly like the cows that I wish they were, which is you got to live in the pasture. You got to eat salt. You got to survive on alfalfa in the winter and hustle for your grub. The party girls that get bred at 14 months. We've all heard what Steve Campbell has to say about those. Those are the best ones to keep. Those are going to make you good cows, especially if they get bred again at 2 years old, and 3. That's a cow that'll stay in your herd for another 8-9 years and give you a lot of calves. That's an animal like that is one that I would look at to say, okay, all this other garbage that's just here I'm not really that impressed with what genetics they throw. We're going to flush and we're going to do embryo transfers from that one. So that's kind of on my radar for 25, 26 timeframe. Is, I'll have maybe 1 or 2 of those awesome party girls that caught early and have rebred once. We'll go ahead and be like, okay, we want this genetic. Grab some embryos, do some transplants to an AI, to a bull that I wouldn't have access to, to something good. If I was going to do it today, it'd probably be one of the Mashona bulls out of the Pharaoh catalog.
Yep. Yeah, get some heat tolerance in there too. So I guess back to that question though, is it do you list them as a Corriente cross calf? Can you tell the difference running through the sale barn? What does that look like as far as marketing is concerned?
I think, just be honest at the sale barn. Like, be honest at the sale barn, I think, and that'll long-term build you a better relationship than anything else. I mean, if you just have one calf drop to dump and you're not going to go do it again, yeah, maybe haul them a couple 100 miles away from home where you think, south. Don't haul Corrientes north. Don't haul them east. Haul them south. But yeah, and there's sales that specialize at selling them too, for ropers. There's also a market for leasing Corriente calves out as ropers as potential. So that's not what I'm into. But it is there. So I'm going to say that, I've got some cows that I bought from the Hoys that are only half Corriente or Longhorn, or that are a quarter blood. There's several quarter blood heifers in there that were 3 years old. Now they're coming 5s. So those are only going to give me an 8th Corriente blood calf, or 8th Longhorn calf. And I'm starting to see some really good things come out of those cows. And I really like how their heifers that I kept from last year are growing and developing on nothing but grass, salt, and alfalfa all year.
And what's the other 7/8? Is it Angus, or what is the other 7/8 on those?
I'm not even sure that Josh and Gwen know. They had some Pharaoh composite bulls that they were breeding to. I know that. So it was all, I wasn't really as concerned with the specific bulls and breeds that they're using, because I understand their management. I know what kind of grass they're working on. I know their ranch has always looked good. I know they're not high input people. So I wasn't worried about getting cows that I couldn't basically pull the rug out from under with all the inputs and know that they weren't going to die on me.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a huge missed opportunity in, I hesitate to call it conventional, but in the Angus bull, Angus cow ranch. I think there's a huge missed opportunity there, where if people aren't retaining ownership, especially if you've got your stockmanship in line, as we talked about with Tom Knopfsinger, Dr. Tom Knopfsinger, if you got your stockmanship in line, those calves are going to perform better in the feedlot than their mates who have come from a high stress, waving your arms and yelling kind of a place. And so I think there's a huge missed opportunity for the Angus people who aren't retaining ownership through, I know it's more risk, and you basically got to figure out how to go a year without a paycheck if you're going to get into doing that. But I think that there is I think the Packers, which maybe we'll talk about in the bonus content, but I think the Packers are making a lot of money off of good management based on carcass merits and some of those things that we have been selecting for, buying the bulls that will give us those things, but then selling them and not realizing the advantage. So we're passing that money on to somebody else. But then I think if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to retain ownership, what you're doing with the Corrientes is a simpler business model and an opportunity to, simplify the business and still be in the cow-calf. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So I think there's two places that extract value out of the cow-calf business, and not out of your cows. Like the two optimum places that I can see from where I'm standing. And if I have this wrong, go to my link tree, contact me, and explain it to me like you would a 5-year-old. Okay. The two places I can see to extract really maximum value from the cow-calf stream to the beef business: 400 pounds, 45 days weaned with 2 rounds of shots. Any day of the week, that's going to bring you a good price at the sale barn, right? You go under that, you go under 350 pounds, it falls off fast. You go over about 400 pounds, it starts falling off fast. You start paying for that gain out the nose. Okay. The other place to extract maximum value is handing a box of beef directly to the customer. Like, that's it. There's no other place. If I kept these to 8, if I tried to keep them to 600 to 800 pounds, I'd go broke. So those are my two exit points to try to exit with an animal. Either hand it to a customer directly in a box, or selling a primal, or selling a part of an animal, right out of the kill floor, or 400 pounds, 60 days weaned with 2 rounds.
Are there people that in the Corriente world handing boxes of beef directly to customers? Is there people that you're aware of doing that?
I should have known you to ask me that question. No, I don't know any off the top of my head.
But most of them are kind of doing something similar to you, right? 400 pounds, 45 days weaned, 2 rounds of shots, out the door.
Right. And, let's just say I'm never really looking at the commercial side of the beef business. Like commercial commodity production side, that's not ever what I'm going to be going for. And my scale is going to be fairly small. Like my herd will probably continue to shrink for a while. And that's part of the plan as you do those aggressive cullings, because fertility drives the bus. Fertility with that asterisk in your context, in your production system. And my production system is, I still have a few more inputs that I need to pull out of it, which means there's going to be more fallout. So last year, we pulled the bottom 12 out and got rid of them. Didn't get a whole lot for them. Didn't get a whole lot more for them than I would have gotten for their heads. Okay. But they didn't die here. And to my knowledge, none of them have died from where they ended up. Their new owners are just perfectly happy with them, and they have good homes. So that being said, hopefully by the time I get my cows to where I want them, and I'm starting to grow some good heifers out of those cows, people will want what I've got. They'll see the merits of the low input forage base, easy flesh and genetics. And hopefully that'll be about the time that, I'll start having something to sell.
And females probably, or what are you thinking?
Females that I don't need to maintain my numbers.
Right. Yep.
I mean, A1. And, I would probably try to get into, selling a bull or two here and there, but that's not necessarily what I'm going to be focused on. The bulls that are going to come out of this program early, they're going to be saved and grown to use later, or to trade to somebody else that I know that's on an extremely similar program that we're going to need to swap some genetics around, just so we don't do some inbreeding.
Right. So will a polled bull knock the horns off of those calves, or do you have to do something with them there?
Out of the calves that I've managed to get a hold of so far that have been born this year, I'd say we're better than 50-50. Like out of the 10, I think I've been a hold of 7 of them, and probably 5 of them had smooth poles. Only 2 of them had little buds already starting. So I think it's just going to take time and a few generations to breed it out, 2, 3, 4 generations. I'm not exceptionally worried about it. I go back and forth, and, I know I talked to Mike Calicrate about using his bander and banding off some horns, and gosh, I go back and forth on this so many times. Like, you look at the picture behind me, and those 3 animals just have absolutely beautiful weapons. It'd be a shame to take them away. I'd feel bad if I took them away.
Yeah. Talk to me about their foraging capability. What have you noticed? What's most exciting to you about that? Their ability to rustle their own grub, I guess, as Jim Garish would say.
They eat a lot of stuff that I haven't seen black cattle eat. They go a lot of places that black cattle won't go. They work a little harder on the steep hillsides. They go a little further into the brush thickets. They've got those big horns. Sometimes they use them like bulldozers that go in, they open up those brush thickets to get in there, get down to the bottom and eat some of that stuff. And as they're doing that, they're breaking some of that brush down, right? They're making a path through it that other wildlife can use, like, quail and other ground nesting birds. Yucca plants. Everybody knows in the spring and summer, cows love to eat the yucca buds. Well, these cows eat yucca all year round. Like, they'll go pull a plant up and eat the base of the plant and eat on the base of the leaves and just mash it up, get all the good juices out of it that they want, and then spit it out on the ground. Huh. I saw one of them eating sagebrush today. Now, granted, all right, we're in like we're basically a 100-acre paddock. We've been in there for 3 days. I gave them whole ass bale of alfalfa 2 days ago. We're talking about 80 AUs, 55 cows, 17 2-year-olds and 25 1-year-olds.
Yeah. Nice.
Like, they're not starving.
They're not starving. They're out there experimenting, or they know they like sagebrush already. They're not experimenting. They already know that it's edible and it does good things as far as, I don't know, fly control or something. So
they'll go munch on a willow tree too.
Yeah.
Willow trees, they eat the leaves off of almost all the brush. One thing I haven't seen my group of cows do that I'm less than impressed with is they don't really eat a whole lot of old world blue stem, which, okay, that's fine. They're in the corral cell of the ranch, which doesn't have any. I have some cows down on the south end from a customer whose half of his ranch is full of old world blue stem. So his cows know how to eat it. And they're down there cleaning that crap up. And I'm just going to keep letting them do it down there.
Is there a time of the year when they like it better than others? The
old world blue stem?
Yeah.
About anything, I like to eat it for a little bit in September. Like kind of between that phase 2, phase 3 point, they like to eat it. But other than that, most of the year, they just leave it alone. I would not to get off on too much of a tangent rabbit trail here on Old World Blue Stem, but man, we have tried spraying that crap to absolute nuked bare soil for 3 years in a row. And guess what comes back? Old World Blue Stem.
Right.
So I give up. It's not worth like spraying that much toxic hell on the ranch to not kill it. So we're just going to try to eat it to death. We put some cows on it at, this is back in 2020. I told Meg, I said, put them in as small of an area as you can, as you feel comfortable with, where it's solid old world for a day. And she had them standing shoulder to shoulder in there, and they just absolutely destroyed it.
No change.
I'm not going to say it fertilized it, but it's still there. So I don't know if a guy could graze it to dirt. I don't know if a guy could kill it by overgrazing it, or a combination of overgrazing and fire. I don't know, but I think that the chemical tool is just simply not going to be effective on old world blue stem.
So knowing what you know now, would you buy the Corrientes again? From a stockmanship, business perspective, and not allowing, not necessarily from the, if I would have known the drought or if I would have known COVID would last, we would now be on to 2.5 years and a potential World War III to flatten the curve rather than 15 days. I mean, if if you were not taking those things into consideration, but I'm just saying, as far as your business and the way they have performed, and would you do it again?
I'm not going to say it hasn't been without its ups and downs. And as any livestock owner knows, there's really no days off. It's difficult to get away. Got kind of spoiled with that with all the years in custom grazing, where, the whole cows, Florida. For me, a lot of years, it was cows, Colorado to go skiing all winter. Because I didn't mind being places where the air hurts my face then, I guess. I'm not going to say that I enjoyed the last 2 Februaries of having to go out in the extreme cold and crappy weather and break ice. But, seeing the baby calves start dropping kind of makes it worth it.
Yeah.
The drought's of course stressful, and, I'm not the only one dealing with it. It's been creeping closer and closer and closer the last several years. I've known it's been coming. There's under no illusions that things were going to get better. And I think that as we move forward, we need to be looking at this drought as not a thing that's going to really get better for a long time. I think that we need to buckle down and prepare to accept climate change in our ranching operations, and that the normal climate the quote normal, because normal is just a setting on a dryer. The normal climate that we've experienced for basically the last of human history on this continent, 100 years, is coming to an end and things are going to change. And I think what that means for all of us in ranching country up and down the Great Plains is it's going to be drier. It might not be as warm. It might be colder. It might be hotter. But I can almost promise you one thing. We're going to be getting less rainfall. So we need to start adapting for that.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day, said that they were talking to somebody who should know, and said we're moving 50 miles east or west. I mean, we're all moving 50 miles west. It's one way I've heard it said, which generally means you're going to get 50 miles drier, right? Or at least an inch, at least lose an inch of moisture for the year, maybe more. So
Dad said 100 miles southwest, yep. 2 to 4 inches less.
Yep. That's
2 to 4 inches less and 10 degree and 5 degrees hotter.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see it. I've been trying to prepare for it. And, I'm coming up on a drought point trigger date. By this time comes up, we'll already be past it. And, I'll be looking forward to the next one. And it's not looking good.
Right. Yep. No, we sent our cows to Nebraska and running on shares down there, and I don't see them coming home anytime soon. So, we'll see. We'll see how it continues to go. But that's our situation as well. So, I guess anything else as far as nature's +1 and that have you has it held true? Has it held true what you expected as far as these Corriente cows are concerned, and have they continued to act like they were adapted to a range environment and nature's maybe +2 with a little alfalfa hay?
Well, I'm not going to claim to have the nature's +1 cow herd from day 6 of ranching for profit. I'm not going to claim that. Do I have something that is kind of close? Do I have an 80% on that? Yeah, maybe. So what do I want to change? Okay. I want a frame size bigger. Okay. I want to take this, 550, 650 pound Corriente, and I want her to be a little bit bigger. I want to be a little bit more like 700, 800 pounds. I think that's a good running size for a range cow. That's what the Longhorns had kind of evolved to, that we're, living on a little bit better grass than the Corrientes kind of evolved on in, farther southwest. So looking at something a little bit more like that, 750, 850, 900 pounder chassis like the Longhorn had, that's what I'd like to get to. So that's my goal. I don't think that next year we're going to be coming back on top with Angus. We'll do something different. He may get retired. He may go to freezer camp or, go find a new job somewhere else, or he just may be reserved to, for another project. But I got to see what this year's calves start looking like. And that's going to drive the next breeding decision, I guess. But like I said, I want to try to upgrade the Corriente. Everybody's been trying to take the quote 1,200 pound Angus that actually weighs 1,600 and make that into the quote 1,000 pound cow that most people wouldn't know if it kicked them in the groin. For 20 years, they've been trying to do that. And there's some places that have had some success. But I think by and large, that's a program that hasn't been as successful as a lot of people had hoped it'd have. Let's start at the other end. So that was my theory behind the Corrientes. So let's start at the other end genetically. Let's try to take something that's already got most of the traits we want and just try to make it bigger. Let's minimize our depreciation getting into this thing, because we know that I can't afford a lot of depreciation. I can't afford to depreciate out a herd of $2,000 cows. That was never in the budget. I don't own a tractor. I don't own a feed mixer. I mean, when I bought these cows, I didn't even have a frickin' bale bed. Okay. I didn't have a caker on a pickup. All I've got is a 20-foot stock trailer. Okay. That's it. I got a chute. I got a couple of sets of corrals. I'm not infrastructure heavy. I couldn't afford to get into a high input program, bunch of cows that had to be fed with with a tractor and a hay mixer. That was not going to fit my program. So I had to have animals that fit my program. So I guess when you get down to it, those 4 things that I just kind of listed off, that's, those were all the big decision-making factors that brought me to Corriente cattle.
And it's performed as expected. I mean, you're still in the business.
I'm still here because I'm subsidizing my cow herd with custom grazing income, and I will be 100% upfront and own that. Okay.
Yep. Right. Well, but I mean, to not be doing that would take a pile more scale, and along with that, you would have a pile more risk. Am I wrong?
Well, I think guys get into the high turnover, high input system because they've got to have that every year, and they can't basically take and pour money into a project for 3 years before it starts even looking like it might start to make money in year 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing to figure out how you're going to make that work on your books and how you're going to cash flow your expenses. Am I on plan? No. Am I far off? A little bit. But the tools that I learned in Ranching for Profit, that one's free, and in holistic management, the tools that they put in my toolbox have allowed me to look at that plan and continue looking at those plans that I already have, sketched out 4 years down the line for this herd. Okay. I can look at that, I can adapt, and I can replan because those organizations, those schools, HMI and Ranching for Profit have given me those skills, have put those skills in my toolbox.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very good. Where can people find you? You mentioned Linktree earlier. Where can people find you? What's coming up?
Oh yeah. Linktree/Red Hills Rancher. I'll make sure you get the link, Clay. I have a Patreon page, kind of like you. I think it'd be cool if all of us ag podcasters got together and we just supported everybody's pages. I think that'd be pretty cool. I know I'm one of your patrons.
I can reciprocate.
Awesome. Let's see. I'll be at Grass Fed Exchange at the end of May down in Fort Worth. I have my tickets, have my hotel booked. I've got help lined up to come take care of the cows. So Grass Fed Exchange at the end of May. I'm not going to go on any tours. The tours first day, we're just going to come down for the conference. So I'll be there. I should have a little bit of Ranching Reboot merch, which Ranching Reboot is my podcast. Did you know I have a podcast, Clay?
I've heard.
Yeah, I have a little podcast called Ranching Reboot. We have a weekly show we usually run about 2 hours, released Monday mornings. Anchor FM / Ranching Reboot. I know you're good. You're good at show notes. I'm sure you'll have all this in there.
Yep. We'll get it all there. workingcows.net/238. This will be out at the end of April, so there's still time to get in on the Grass-Fed Exchange. Go down and hang out with Brian. So there's the opportunity.
But you're not coming?
I guess it's not on my radar yet, and I've had a busy spring already, so I'm not real confident that I'll be there.
I understand. But it'd be great to see you down there. We could have like a big pod reunion or something.
Yeah. Well, you and I have yet to meet face to face. I think we've been within 100 miles of each other a couple times, but yet to meet face to face. So that would be cool. We're
going to have to fix that. And when we do that, we're going to end up in a studio somewhere with microphones in front of our face.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. That'll be good. Brian, thanks for your time today.
Clay, thanks for having me. And I really appreciate it, buddy. Really appreciate everything you've done for me, my pod father.
You put that in the ether, and then I heard Joe Rogan use it the other day talking about the actual pod father. So I don't know. It's getting more widely adopted. So
no, I don't credit me with that. I'm 100% sure I heard him refer to Adam Curry.
That's it.
The pod father.
Okay.
Before I ever said it. So
okay. All right.
That one is not mine. I'm not even going to try to.
Well, I was excited to hear you say normal's just a setting on a dryer, because we also borrowed our phrase from where did the original Cows, Florida? That was
is that Logan Privino?
No, he's from Ohio. Oh man, it's terrible. Jeff Ramsire. Jeff Ramsire was the first one to say that, and so you dropped that one today, and you dropped your own, the one that I've quoted many times. Normal's just a setting on a dryer, so that always gets a chuckle. Everybody recognizes that's true. So,
yeah.
Anyways, good talking to you, and we will get connected face to face sometime.
Yep, great chat, Clay. Have a good day.
You too. Are you looking for carefully curated and delightfully digestible ag news? Well, look no further. Magnetic Ag is a twice-weekly newsletter that curates from over 40 sources to bring you a 5-minute email read on all things agriculture. Join 10,000-plus farmers and agriculture professionals today. Sign up today for free at magnetic-ag.com. Well, very good there. And I know in the outro to last week's episode, if you were listening, I said Scott Hawk was going to be my guest for this week's episode. Forgot that Brian lent me his voice for the show number for this episode, so decided to stick with that and avoid confusion. But so next week, episode 239 of the Working Cows podcast, Lord willing, will be with Scott Hawk, and we're going to have a discussion with him about the truly regenerative nature of regenerative agriculture in its ability to keep families on the land. So look forward to that. We'll see you again real soon with another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.